Welcome everybody to TalentED, your insight into the world of education, leadership. I'm your host, Dr. Skanson, and today we are joined by a luminary in educational leadership, Dr. Darrin Peppard. With 26 years in public education, Dr. Peppard is an accomplished author, coach, speaker, known for his best-selling book, Road to Awesome. He's got a popular podcast, Leaning into Leadership. His work focuses on positive organizational culture and climate in schools and guiding leaders to find clarity and joy in their roles, which is so important these days. So with that, I want to dive into the mind of a man who's helping us reshape the educational leadership. So Dr. Peppard, welcome to the show. I'm going to give it over to you and just say a big welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks so much, Eric. I appreciate that. Excited to have the conversation today to talk about Talent Ed, talk a little bit about my work here, traveling the road to awesome for the last 20 plus years, working with leaders, working with schools to, as you said, build and support that positive culture and climate to help leaders gain clarity, help them walk in their purpose, and just honestly fall in love with the job again.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's fun to put you on this side of the interview, knowing that you're typically on this side. We get to flip it on you a little bit today. So, I'm going to go right into it, Darrin. You have an extensive experience and you have an interesting story. Let's talk about what are two key elements that you think can make or break a leader in education these days?
Yeah, so I referenced it a little bit, but I truly believe that clarity and intentionality are by far and away the most important things for leaders and ultimately for the success of an organization. We probably have all, at different points in our careers, worked with leaders who had a lot of clarity and were really good about creating that compelling vision and helping us to feel like we had ownership in that vision. Like we knew what our part was, what our responsibility was to help the organization achieve that mission. And we've probably also worked with those leaders who really weren't very good at that, who, in essence, I like to refer to it as being a firefighter versus being a leader. And, essentially just waiting around for the next crisis and just solving everybody's problems instead of really truly leading the organization. And so for me, the work that I do, it's so critical to help those individual leaders, leadership teams, classroom leaders as teachers to identify what it is that truly matters to them, to really get clear about their priorities, about what it is that they're looking for, about what it is that they're expecting, not only of others, but of themselves. And then to back that up with intentional actions, intentional communications, intentional behaviors, and intentional thought patterns that ultimately lead to a really clear vision that everybody can buy into, believe in, and really understand and feel like, hey, I am a part of this. I know what my responsibilities are, how I go about doing this work. And ultimately, Eric, I'll be honest with you, when leaders get that really, really crystal clear vision, when they have intentional actions and behaviors and use of their time, it ultimately becomes a filter that they can use to make good quality decisions instead of just making decisions, kind of at the snap of a finger. Again, that also ties in with moving from being a firefighter to truly being a leader in the organization.
Well, what's interesting about that, Darrin, is as educational instructional leaders, we talk often about clarity in the classroom, right? About making learning visible. sharing with your students, what is it we're going to achieve today? What is it we want to learn today? And then it's like we step back from the classroom and we forget our own advice. So
Right.
like we should have our own learning targets outside our doors, right? About what is the organizational learning targets. And I just think you're so spot on with that. And finding that clarity is such a gift when you finally have it painted in front of you, and not only finding that clarity, but being able to communicate that clarity. I don't know if you have any thoughts on the communication with
Oh,
that.
yeah. Well, communication, I mean, to me, clarity, communication is a huge part of that. And I think often as leaders, it's very similar. I love that you tied it to the classroom. So let's tie communication to the classroom as well.
Yeah.
As a school leader, we would never be satisfied with a teacher who said, well, I taught it, that they needed to listen, they needed to
Hmm.
learn it. Or, when we ask a teacher about expectations in the classroom, well, I told them on day one, or it's in the syllabus. We would never be okay with that.
We would
So
not.
as school leaders, we can't be okay with, well, I told you on the new teacher orientation day, or I told you at our opening staff meeting. Folks, nobody remembers what happened at your opening
No,
staff meeting. And I don't care if
no.
you're listening to this like a week after school started or in June.
Hmm.
You don't remember what you said, right? Communication, we have to be so intentional with our communication. And I'm not saying we need to be contrived. We don't need to be,
Right.
strategic. We need to be intentional. And communication isn't just what we say. It isn't just what we put in an email. To me, the most important communication skill is listening. We have to be really intentional to
Mm.
listen to the people that we lead. And, that helps gain that clarity. If I'm truly listening to my classroom teachers, to my leadership team, to my paraprofessionals, my custodial staff, my secretaries, on
Hmm.
and on and on, my parents, my students, my goodness, listen to your students. If I'm really being intentional with my listening, then that helps me to continually gauge, where are we on this
Hmm.
journey to this compelling vision that I have. We have a tendency, I won't speak for everybody, but I certainly had a tendency to get a little tunnel vision, right? You get the school year started and you have these grand plans and you have these wonderful visions of
Hmm.
here's where we're going to go. And lo and behold, the year gets in the way, right? Before you know it, you've done 11 new teacher observations and you got all this
Hmm.
paperwork and on and on and on. And then, you come up for air in November or maybe January and you realize, wow, I
It's
haven't done
almost
anything on my
done.
goals.
Hmm.
Exactly right. Yeah. Now it's like, oh man, I got to get ready for testing season. I got hiring season coming. I got budget season. I don't know why we call everything a season in education, but for some reason we do. But, you know, we've got to be intentional the whole way through the process to really listen in, to dial in. That's a huge part of the communication.
Hmm.
And the other part of that communication then is our actions. Again, it's not just our words and what we say in email, it's what we do, the behaviors we choose. And of course, again,
I
listening
love
is a
that.
huge part of that. So when I'm coaching and working with leaders, when I'm, when I'm delivering a keynote or a workshop on leadership, that's exactly where we're going to go. We're going to go hard on
Hmm.
communication. We're going to go hard with gaining that clarity. And then we're going to make sure we're intentional with all of those pieces so that we're really much more in control of ourself. We're actually leading again and not just running around putting out fires. Anybody can put out fires. Great leaders are going to be really intentional with that communication and with listening.
Well, modeling is perfect. I just it works at
Yeah.
all levels, right? It works from
Yeah.
teacher to student and from teacher to teacher, principal to teacher, like superintendent to principal, like it works at all levels. So I just love that you brought
Yeah.
that in. You spoke a little bit about a journey, and I'm gonna tie this in. Uh, could you share with us the story of how you found your road to awesome? What was the journey like for you?
Yeah. I'm glad you asked that question. I started my leadership career after 11 years in the classroom. I was a middle school teacher and a high school teacher. I was a head coach. Um, But when I became an administrator, I went from the school where I was a teacher and a coach to a different school back in my home state of Wyoming. And it was so interesting. You want to be a servant leader. That's one of the
Mm-hmm.
things you're really taught as you go through your master's program. And I wanted to serve my teachers. I wanted to support them. And when I arrived in this role, I'm in charge of discipline and attendance. It's usually where people start to feel sorry for me, as they should. Um, but I discovered that unintentionally that we had a pretty toxic culture. We were really, really good at catching people doing things wrong. That's what we were all about, whether that was kids or other adults. It was about catching people doing things wrong. And partway through my first school year in this role, we're in a staff meeting, and it's a staff meeting so many of us have been in. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, many will still be in this particular staff meeting. We're trying to solve the two most important issues in education. And you know what those are, right? What we do about hats and what we do about cell phones. That meeting. You laugh
Mm-hmm.
because you've been in that
I've
meeting.
been
You've
in that
led that
meeting,
meeting.
the hat meeting.
Yeah.
Oh my
I
gosh.
cringe because people will still be in that meeting. It's like,
Yeah.
who cares? It's a
Who
hat, right?
cares?
Okay. But anyway,
Yes.
yeah. We're we're partway through that meeting, and somewhere between let's buy the calculator things and hang the cell phones on the wall, and my woodshop teacher Harvey, who said, hey, just let me crush one of them with a hammer, man. They'll get the message, right? Um, on the cell phone piece, somebody raised their hand and just said, Darrin, why does it always have to be about what they do wrong? Why can't it be about
Mm.
what they do right? And
Prolific.
and oh, it's huge, right? And I don't think, I mean, I certainly didn't discover it in the moment. It took some reflection, it took some
Mm-hmm.
time. But I always go back to, Robert Frost's poem, The Road Not Taken. And the
Mm-hmm.
final stanza is two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the road less traveled by, and it has made all the difference. And for me, that road less traveled was not the road of let's just keep hammering on them. Let's not,
Mm-hmm.
let's focus on punishment to gain compliance. Strategy doesn't work, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, the road less traveled, that's the road where we focus on what they're doing right and not focus so much on what they're doing wrong.
Love
And
that.
it took some time. This wasn't an instant transformation. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like, some divine intervention, but upon many years of reflection, that's really where the road to awesome was born. To me,
Mm-hmm.
that road less traveled is the road to awesome. And every one of us is traveling our own path, our own journey. And I mean, why wouldn't you want to go someplace awesome?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, even the teachers that as school leaders we have felt like, wow, you don't like kids. It just feels like you don't like kids. They do like kids. They really do.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's getting up in the morning looking in the mirror and going, huh, who can I just make miserable today?
Right.
Right? Nobody's doing that. We need to help everybody discover their own road to awesome. And so, um, man, over time, it's just been this continued journey, and it's not perfect. Don't get me wrong. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I talk all the time about focus on what you can control, let go of what you can't. Remember that you can't build positive culture in a field of blame. I mean, after all, right now, like blame is our national pastime.
It
Sorry,
is.
baseball, you're out. It's all about pointing fingers. And um, when we travel that road to awesome, if we focus on what we can control and let go of what we can't, if we try to focus on building a positive playlist and listen to the more positive people in our school or remove ourselves from the energy vampires, um, incredible things can start to happen. We have this mind shift that takes place. And this was the thing I think that took longest for me in that journey was to really start looking for and training my mind to look for the things
Mm-hmm.
that were positive. You know, the school where I went, ultimately I became the principal of that school. I was there for 11 years, and we had a lot of great things happening in that school. But all we did was focus on the things people did wrong. We shined the spotlight on the things people did wrong. So over time, this was part of our transformation of culture, that journey to building that positive culture and climate that we ultimately, I think, we're really proud of, and had a lot to do with our results. Was really just starting to focus on those good things and shine the spotlight on those things.
Mm-hmm.
Recognize, reward, and reinforce the good things that are happening, and more of those good things start to happen. And the more you're looking for them, the more you see them. And um, that, to me, that's the road to awesome journey right there, is just finding others, lifting them up, and helping them discover their own positive road to awesome.
This, Darren, so much of what you're talking about reminds me of the law of attraction, in that, if you're looking at negative and trying to find negative, what are you surrounded with? Negative. And it just brings
Yeah.
more and more and more. So your ability to flip that script and go, nope, that's not what we're going to attract anymore. We're going to attract the awesomeness, right? And the more you talk about it, it's like the universe opens up and says, here it
Oh
is.
yeah.
Walk through that door, baby.
Yeah.
You finally found the awesome door.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
loved your
It's
story.
incredible. I mean, what you look for, I mean, you're so spot on. What you look for, you'll find. I'll give you a
Mm-hmm.
quick example. I'm a Jeep owner. I drive a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon,
Mm-hmm.
have for almost 10 years now. And man, before I bought that Jeep, I never saw Jeeps anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and now everywhere I go, I see a Jeep. Everywhere I go, I see
Everywhere.
Jeeps. And, part of that is, as Jeep owners, we throw the Jeep wave when we see other Jeeps, but it just reinforces, that reinforces two things. Number one, what you're looking for, you'll find.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, everybody wants to feel like they're part of something special. I
They
mean,
do.
I didn't buy the Jeep because of the Jeep Wave, but I got Jeep Wave like 4 or 5 times on the test drive. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, where do I sign? I got to be a part of this, right? We want to create culture in our schools where everybody feels like they're seen and heard and valued and trusted. I mean, we want people to feel like they're part
Mm-hmm.
of something special. So what we're looking for, what we really value, and this is the clarity piece again, what do we really value? What are we really trying to create? The more we're looking for that, the more it starts to manifest itself. It's like we're speaking it into existence.
Darren, I could listen to you all day. Like you're in my wheelhouse, man. Like this is the stuff that I believe and practice, and um, yeah, it's so reaffirming. And I mean, speaking of law of attraction, like even meeting you and getting connected to you, like it is so strange how the universe puts puts these things together, and
Yeah.
it just makes me so happy to sit here talking to you today.
Oh,
Um,
likewise.
I'm
Likewise.
gonna I'm gonna flip it on you a little bit, since you like to
Sure.
take the road less traveled. Um, when you're not inspiring future leaders, like what's your go-to activity, man? Let's get out of education. Like, what do you like to do?
Yeah. Yeah. So I would tell you, my number one go-to activity is honestly just spending time with my family. But number two, that one's probably low-hanging fruit. So I will go here. I will
Okay.
tell you that love spending time in the Jeep. We used to live in the mountains in Colorado.
Okay.
I mean, four-wheeling was right out the door, literally
Mm-hmm.
just right out the door. We now live in the urban jungle of Omaha, Nebraska. There are no mountains anywhere
No
to be found.
mountains.
So I've been an avid golfer for a long time. I'm
Okay.
not a good golfer. I'm going to just say flat out, I am not a good golfer. I'm not improving anymore at this point in my life. I am playing to enjoy
Mm-hmm.
and love to get out and hit golf balls, and then hopefully go find golf balls out on the golf course. Absolutely love
That is on the bottom of my list of things that I enjoy because it is so frustrating.
it.
It probably happens when you only go golfing once every 3 years, and then I end up with sore
It
ribs
might
because
have
I'm
something to do
swinging
with
wrong. So, if I
it. Yeah.
really wanted to commit to get better, I would have to really think about that.
Yeah. If
Um,
if you have to go to the chiropractor every time you
yeah,
play, it's probably not your
it's
sport.
it's not enjoyable. No, no.
Yeah.
How about this one? I'm gonna send you in the DeLorean, 88 miles per hour. You get to go
Yeah.
backwards. Which historical education pioneer would you love to have a conversation with? Or even if it's not education, like it could even be historical figure.
Wow. That is so good.
But you gotta hit
Um,
88 miles per hour.
yeah, no problem at all. I don't have a problem with that at all. But before the Jeep, I drove a Mustang. So yeah, I have no problem with 88 miles an hour. I would tell you, just the moment in time that comes up for me. I would love to have had the opportunity to be front and center for John F. Kennedy's speech when he talked about going to the moon. That we
Mm,
choose to go to the moon, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. I believe that every one of us has the ability to do hard things.
mm-hmm,
We just sometimes need the encouragement and the support of others, or maybe it's that statement that
mm,
compel. You talked about compelling vision. That was a compelling vision, and
absolutely.
one that JFK didn't live out to see, but ultimately it happened, and he spoke that into existence. Um, Man, to have the opportunity as a speaker to hear that powerful of a speaker with that powerful of a compelling vision.
Right?
Um, I mean, you talk about, you talk about changing the world. That changed the world.
Change the world.
So just
Now,
on first glance, or just I did not get this question in advance. So I'm going to tell you, man, if I could be front and center for that, I would hit 88 miles an hour for
if
that.
I mean, that is a definable road to awesome moment, right? Like
Oh yeah,
we have a choice, and here's where you go. That reminds
yeah,
this is sparking with me. Uh, Harry Potter, Dumbledore had a road to awesome moment. And I'm going to botch the quote here, but it was something like, um, there's difficult times ahead. And he's talking to Harry. He's like, soon we all have some is like a choice uh, between what is right and what is easy, right?
yeah.
That's a road to awesome moment. Like
It
like it
is.
is literally the
Yeah.
fork in the road for Harry Potter's or JFK or Dr. Darrin Pepper. Like we all have a road to awesome moment where we get to have a choice
Yeah.
of where we go.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love that. I love that. That's actually, a lot of the times when I'm speaking, I will open pretty much with that quote and say, we all know the quote, but we also have those moments where two roads diverge for each of us, and we have to
Nice.
make a choice. And, sometimes the right choice and the difficult choice are actually the same thing.
Hmm. Yeah. Just because it's awesome doesn't mean it's easy, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Let's take you back to your high school principal moments. Give me one funny anecdote
Yeah.
or lighthearted moment. Like, give me a funny.
Oh man, holy cow, so many. Um, I'll give you two really quick. So I had been gone for maybe a week and a half at a variety of different things. I was out of the building, and I usually wasn't out of the building more than a day or two. I was typically the guy at the front door greeting all the kids and the
Mm-hmm.
staff and all that type of thing. And I think this was either my first or second year as the principal, but I had a bit of a prankster as one of my assistant principals,
Okay.
and he wanted to make sure I felt welcomed back. And um, the day got started as a normal day. And then I started noticing during the first passing period, and this went on most of the day, um, Matt and several other of my staff members, and actually a lot of our student leaders, had gotten together and they made the giant, like, blow up image of my head and put them on meter sticks. And by the end of the
Nice.
day, there were probably 200 kids walking around. You see them like at a,
Yeah.
college basketball game
Like
where they have
fatheads
the,
or like, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So these kids are all walking around with, all these giant cutouts of my head just to let me
Oh,
know that they missed me.
that they missed you.
That was a
How
lot of
fun.
fun. I'll tell you, I don't know how funny it is, but I'm a lifelong Denver Bronco fan, which right now is kind of funny. It's
Hmm.
also kind of painful. I know you're a Vikings
I'm a
fan, so
Vikings
you get
fan, so
it.
I feel it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But we can't blame Kirk Cousins and we can't blame Russell Wilson. I mean, we
Nah.
could, but it doesn't change the outcome. Um, but there was a moment in time prior to the glory years of Peyton Manning and after the glory years of John Elway when there was this flash in the pan, um, uh, completely unexplainable phenomenon that is Tim Tebow. And
Yes.
Tim Tebow kept winning games that there was absolutely no reason for them to be winning games. And of course, I was a principal in Wyoming. So right in the Rocky Mountain region,
Hmm.
most, not all, but most are Bronco fans. And we started Tebowing in the hallway.
Oh,
And my students were Tebowing in the hall. This was happening across the country, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I decided in a big all school assembly to Tebow in the assembly
Yeah.
and just brought the house down. Everybody just loved that
Mm-hmm.
I T-bowed. And then I just started doing it in the hallways and it just kind of became a thing. And we were hearing, that around the country, there were principals who were, outlawing it and we can't do this. It's a disturbance. And man, we leaned right into it and
Lean
we had a
into
lot of
it.
fun with it. But we were building that kind of culture where, I knew my kids,
Right.
even though I had 1,400, 1,500 of them, I knew my
Acceptable.
kids and, yeah, exactly. And we were having fun.
And how important it is to have fun at work. It
Yeah,
really is. I mean, those are two words that I think are under represented in climate and culture is fun and as a leader, likable. Like you
yeah,
actually need to be likable to get stuff done in a
yeah,
school. Otherwise it is the road not awesome and it's the road of compliance
right.
and fear.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like that's not good. It's not good. So I think those
No,
are
it's not.
underestimated in school culture and climate.
Yeah.
Well,
100%.
gosh, Darren, before we wrap up, is there anything else you want our listeners to know about before we get going?
I mean, I think we've hit it pretty well. You did mention the podcast leading into leadership.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you this, the gist of the podcast, and it just reflects my beliefs as a leader, is great leadership is great leadership. And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter the venue in which it takes place, whether that's in the business space, the nonprofit space, the educational
Mm-hmm.
space, higher ed, elementary, whatever. We can all learn from each other as leaders. And one thing that I really truly believe is there's not one person who has all the answers. If we're the smartest person in the room, we better go find another room.
Mm-hmm.
And through my podcast, that's my opportunity. I get to find a new room all the time, and I get to
Right.
share that room with
I
others
I understand
because,
100%.
again, yeah, we just want to keep growing as leaders, and I want to keep the saw sharp as much as possible. And man, I get the opportunity to learn constantly from other people through
Mm-hmm.
through the podcast, through my leadership coaching. And I'm working with schools all across the country, individual coaching,
Mm-hmm.
full group, leadership coaching. And man, the more I get to lean into leadership, just the more, that saw stays really sharp for me
Right.
and the bucket stays full.
So authentic, so real, and I think that's why people love you, Darren. And I can tell you, I'm adding you up on my list of edgy crushes as we go forward here. So um, here's we go. I mean, I think, like I said, I could talk all day, but in the
Yeah,
light of you know time, we're gonna call her quits on this one. So as we conclude
excellent.
this episode, Darren, I'm reminded of that power of leadership that you talk about in how we shape positive school cultures and climates and clarity. Clarity, we have to be upfront with what we believe and what we're trying to accomplish. So with that, I want to thank you for coming on the show, sharing your valuable experiences and stories with us. A little bit of insight into the Jeep Wave. I don't even know what it is because I don't have a Jeep Wave. Is it like the rural farmer wave where
Yeah.
you do this? Is it the one
No, it's two fingers. It's like a peace sign with
piece?
with your thumb sticking up a little bit, and apparently it brings balloons when you do it on
Wow.
Zoom.
Did you just see that?
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty cool, huh? But really, the Jeep Wave is it actually goes back to after World War One. Jeeps were used
Sure.
during World War One primarily, and so many of those Jeeps found their way stateside, and typically those Jeeps were owned by GIs.
Sure.
And when they would see each other, it was just a little, the little two fingers to be symptomatic of victory
Oh,
in World War One. And it
nice.
stuck with
Yeah,
Jeep people. And now it is part of that Jeep community
sure.
now. And I think that's what draws me to it so much, and what, man, why culture and climate are so important to me. Again, if we create those spaces where people feel like they're included. Like everybody
Hmm.
wants to be part of something special.
They
So
do.
find a way to create it. And yeah, the Jeep Wave is just a simple example. The Harley Davidson motorcycle wave, same deal, right?
Same deal.
Same
Yep.
deal.
And I'm trying to think, do I have a school pro wave so that when we see each other, maybe it's more like the Forrest Gump? I don't know, something like that.
I don't know. We'll have to come up with
I
something.
have
Yeah.
to come up with something. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah. There you
gosh.
go.
So fun. So fun. Again, thanks for sharing stories with us. To our
You
listeners,
bet.
remember to connect with School Pro K-12, inspiring content, and also booking engagements. You want to book it, Darrin? I'm happy to help you get them booked. Otherwise, I know you can contact Darrin as well and get booked. So I would say with that, this has been Talent Dead, and stay PKS, which is positive, kind, and supportive, everybody. Thank you.